Good afternoon to all of you. I'm very pleased to have the chance to be part of this event today, to have the opportunity to go together with my colleague Javier to present you the ERICA working group and the ERICA database and the benefits and challenges that ERICA is facing as a result of the introduction of ESEF in Europe. Following the agenda on the next slide, for those that are not familiar with ERICA, I will give an introduction during which it will become clear that ESEF will have a major impact on our work and methods. Javier will then clearly demonstrate the consequences of this impact and in particular, the opportunities that this entails. Obviously, these opportunities do not come without challenges. Javier will explain the current state of play, as well as future steps foreseen. But let me first start with presenting you the work of the ERICA working group. The ERICA working group is a working group, as Ignacio already mentioned, of the European Committee of Central Balance Sheet Data Offices, which is an informal body whose members consist of experts, either from the central balance sheet data offices of European national central banks or from national statistical institutes. The main task of the ECCBSO is to improve the analysis of non-financial corporate enterprises data through the exchange of information and experience based on the work carried out by the national central balance sheet data offices, which collect and store accounting data for different purposes, creating statistics, performing economic analysis or risk assessment. Whatever the purpose is, we do have at least one thing in common. The work is based on the financial statements, consolidated or not, of non-financial companies. Not only the purpose differs, but also our approach, the way we collect the financial statements. In some countries, the information is collected through surveys. In other countries, the data are received from banks, or the CBSO may play the role of administrative source where the statements have to be filed. The ECCBSO has created several working groups to deal with specific subjects. I will not talk about the other working groups today. Let's have a closer look at the ERICA working group. The ERICA working group primarily focuses on the impact of IFRS on the reporting of non-financial corporations and their effects on the European CBSO databases and questionnaires. To that aim, we follow up new standards and ISB projects. Initially, in order to learn about IFRS and the content of IFRS reports, we developed a standard format as a translation of the bound volume into separate accounting elements, primarily focusing on the main statements and based on common practice in Europe. We started to try out and test the standard formats with real cases in order to be able to improve it. And as we used the format more and more with real figures, we decided to group all this information in a database in order to facilitate the exploitation of the data. This database was named European Records of IFRS Consolidated Accounts, ERICA. And thanks to ERICA, we learned more on the opportunities and limits of consolidated financial statements. Moreover, ERICA facilitates an in-depth financial analysis of the data. The ERICA working group also monitors XBRL developments in the participating countries, in particular the IFRS taxonomy and the ESEF project, of course. I will skip the last two topics we are currently involved in as they are not really relevant today. So the ERICA database comprises IFRS accounting data from non-financial listed groups of 9 European countries, being Austria, Belgium, France, Germany, Greece, Italy, Portugal, Spain, and Turkey. The database covers the period 2005 until 2019, but some countries started to collect information in 2006 or 2009, or even more recently in 2017. Currently, we are collecting data related to the year 2020. And the database includes a sample of more than 1,000 listed groups on an annual basis. In most of the countries, this sample is very representative for the total population of listed groups. Based on the accounting measure turnover, for example, the coverage is higher than 95% in most countries. For each of these listed groups, more than 280 elements are collected annually. In total, for the entire period covered, the template has been completed more than 15,600 times. But what exactly do we collect? First of all, we collect information that is needed to identify the group and to interpret the accounting data, such as the opening and the closing date of the statements, whether the amounts are expressed in euro or in US dollars, in thousands or in millions, and so on. Then we collect information that we fit into the main statements. The statement of profits or loss, the statement of other comprehensive income, the statement of financial position, and the statement of cash flows. Many elements can be directly found in the main statements of the group's reports. However, a considerable part of the data relates to more detailed information and is in general disclosed in the notes. This is in particular the case for what we call additional information. Examples of such information are employment figures, data on leases, segment information of revenue, and etc. All this granular data that we collect in a standardized, harmonized way is, for the time being, only available to the national central banks that contribute to ERICA. This could change in the future, but there are several legal obstacles to overcome. Aggregate figures and statistical information about ERICA data is publicly available, though. You can see the link to the website on the slide here. You simply need to register to access the information. Currently, the website only includes a subset of the ERICA data, but it is highly likely that we will enlarge the content in the near future. The granular ERICA data is used for analysis by the working group. On the one hand, we publish an annual report that provides a general analysis of the main developments during the last year in terms of profitability, financial structure, and cost of debt. On the other hand, we also publish ad hoc reports called ERICA series that cover more specific or one-off topics such as employment, cash flows, or the impact of IFRS 16. All these reports are also accessible by means of the link shown here. The ERICA database that we have created over time comprises many benefits, which are enumerated on the next slide. It is clear that the most important of these benefits is the comparability that we attain thanks to a standardized, harmonized format or template to collect the figures. The contributing national central banks all use the same application to feed the database, as a result of which all data is validated by the same quality controls. The database scope is international, as already mentioned, 9 countries collaborate to it. The coverage of non-financial listed groups is satisfactory for all these countries, in particular in terms of revenue or another accounting measure. For the time being, the granular information is only available to the participating national central banks. But for the granular and the aggregate level, the data is easily exportable. And as a message to all users, we are always open to feedback What kind of information do you miss? What could be improved? Just let us know. In general, the ERICA data is used for several purposes in the national central banks, from financial stability to research, analysis, statistics, and even risk assessment of listed groups. Now, how is the ERICA information collected? Up till now, all non-financial listed groups publish their annual report in PDF format. In the first step, all countries except Spain, as they already had an XBRL taxonomy, have to enter the information manually, either in their own application or in an Excel template or directly in the application that is used to centralize the data. This manual data entry obviously involves several risks, such as typing errors, inconsistencies between the countries in assigning amounts to the different line items in the template, or amounts that are incorrectly interpreted and therefore incorrectly classified in the formats. These risks are mitigated to some extent by the system of integrated checking that is used to centralize all ERICA information. SIC is a web application developed by Banco de España. A significant benefit of SIC is its integrated control checks. All data have to pass the same checks, which significantly reduces the risk of typing errors. The other types of errors remain though. The ERICA database is then directly exported from SIC. As you might imagine, the entry into force of ESEF in Europe will imply a significant and progressive gain of efficiency in the collection process. Furthermore, it can overcome many of the problems or risks mentioned on the previous slides. However, ESEF does not come without challenges. First of all, ESEF is not a closed list of XBRL tags. By means of extensions and anchoring, companies are allowed to integrate their own company-specific elements. Additionally, the IFRS standards provide alternatives in many cases that companies have to choose from. As such, we need to deal with the challenge to map flexible elements to a closed format, since we need it for statistical and analysis purposes. I now pass the floor on to Javier, who will explain this challenge more in depth.
Well, thank you. Yes, I'm with the mic open. Thank you, Saskia, for granting me the opportunity of participating in this presentation. Taking into consideration this gain of, or this potential gain of efficiency in collecting data that Saskia was referring to before, we, the ERICA working group, jointly with the XBRL Spain, are developing right now a simple, easy Excel IT tool in order to achieve this gain in efficiency. Javier Mora will explain us from a more technological point of view perspective the challenges it entails, and I will try to explain it from a user perspective. First of all, I will try to explain you how to automatically collect data from a single electronic format, the ESEF format, to a harmonized format, the ERICA format. Of course, we will need to map, as I will explain later on, the linkage, let's say. And well, all the ERICA working group members participated in this mapping process. We got the best possible ESEF taxonomy-ERICA format pre-mapping, but we already know that there will be some situations where we will have to use what we call the fine-tuning process, okay, where we will have to use customized mapping, let's say. Well, first of all, trying to illustrate you, I don't know, let me, okay, now I see better the presentation. Well, trying to collect data electronically and automatically from a single format ESEF to a harmonized format, the ERICA format. If we focused on the ESEF report, the balance sheet, more particularly on the goodwill element, we have it here, and we also have it in our ERICA format. We will try to import or to collect data, this data particularly into these cells in the ERICA format. Okay, the way we get it is by if you realize, or well, if you pay attention here, every ERICA element has a code, let's say a number, sorry, and it is linked to the let's say I'm thinking of the word, sorry, the qualified name that lies behind each of the ESEF elements. Okay, so well, in that way, we could let's say map and match the amounts that are shown in the ESEF report to the ERICA format. That would be the way we get to with this mapping. Okay, in this element, this is quite easy because there is only one qualified name, let's say, for the for this particular ERICA element, but in some other it is more difficult. We as ERICA working group had to map all the financial statements, and apart from that, well, all the notes that we could map as well. And for instance, in this case, it is not so easy, the mapping we found. In this case, we are talking about the cash flow statement, more particularly in the net cash flows from used in financing activities, where we have the 83 number. It is the codification we have here. And we provided two possible mapping options. We have to be really flexible because the preparer could use different kind of elements, let's say. So, well, the reason to offer this kind of three mapping options, pre-mapping options, it is because we have more than three, approximately, okay, more than 3,000 ESEF elements. Each core ESEF element can be linked to various ERICA primary financial statement element, or the other way around. One ERICA element can be compounded, as we can see here, from various, of various core ESEF taxonomy elements. We so far decided to offer up to three options in the pre-mapping. But in any case, this is a constraint, okay, because we can find unexpected elements that could be part of the final mapping, such as elements from the notes that are included in the primary financial statements, extensions that are purposely specifically created, or omissions or errors, sorry. This would lead us to a customized mapping option with the application of what we call the fine-tuning process that we will try to explain through with an example. Regarding the fine-tuning process, this is an example, specific example. We can find a wide range of them where customized mapping is needed, okay? Imagine that we already uploaded the ESEF report with all the qualified elements, with all the qualified ESEF elements and the elements itself of the ESEF format. Well, we would focus on the comprehensive income for this fine-tuning process. We should have the cash flow hedges, focusing on the cash flow hedges and its movements. We have the amounts for the corresponding period, okay? we should then import the pre-mapping we already showed you before. This would be the precise mapping we so far have for these elements, up to 3 options in this case. Then we would apply this pre-mapping to the real case, let's say, and in the ERICA format, we would find that we have no results at all because it is not pre-mapped. Okay, so in this case, we have to make some changes. Well, in the case of the analyst, through what we call the fine-tuning process in order to harmonize data. Due to the knowledge, experience that the analyst already has, and moving to one of the sheets that this Excel IT tool have, that is the fact sheet, we would find that there are those pre-mapped elements that are matched with the ESEF elements would be colored, and the ones that aren't matched, let's say, wouldn't be colored. So this is a hint. Another hint would be that they are ordered mainly by financial statements. So that would be, we know that we are looking for some elements that should be in the comprehensive income. So more or less, this is to say that it would be easy for someone that has accounting knowledge to find out that that there are extensions that weren't pre-mapped elements, and that they have to be imported in the IFRS customized mapping option. This is what we did here in this example. Okay, and well, once we had it, we would apply again the mapping, and we should get the amount, automatical amount, in the corresponding elements of the ERICA format. So here, as you can see, the cash flow hedges in the comprehensive income statement of the ERICA format are filled in. Apart from that, well, the analyst should as well have to cross-check finally that the amounts are correctly automatically imported, let's say. So this is to highlight in this case that with this example, or to illustrate the crucial role of the analyst throughout the process. So more or less, well, apart from our internal learning process, if we had a repository, the repository could be a powerful tool for analytical purposes. The storage in a repository, both of the master and the key specific ERICA fine-tune mapping elements for each specific group, including the customized amendment, would lead, for instance, if stability in time of taxonomy elements for annual reports take place, previous internal mapping could be used, or just with minor adjustment, and this would lead to an increase in efficiency and less time consumption to collect data in the ERICA format. And as a consequence, of course, we could increase the usefulness for final statistical products. Apart from that, well, with this repository, it would be easy to identify the most frequently used ESEF elements that could identify some patterns that would allow us to identify common practices within a sector or by an auditor, and could provide help in potential areas in the official taxonomy update, or just internally in the ESEF ERICA mapping. And it can be as well useful for potential users such as professors, lecturers, academic in general, and professional institutions, as long as they want to boost the use of financial statements in an electronic reporting environment, let's say. And well, that's all.